3 minutes. Two minutes. One minute. The Editor-in-Chief is live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, welcome to the program. You're with the Editor-in-Chief live, and it's great to have you company this morning. Welcome along. Now, she's a banger today, a really packed show. Former race car champion Greg Murphy on how slow is too slow, and if the government wants to raise speed limits, should councils be able to overrule that? Slow drivers frustrate. Are they worse than fast drivers? Let me know. Murph is with us very, very shortly. 117 days still down, and still she's on full pay and clinging on. In the wake of this new report, I'll tell you why former Green MP Darleen Tana will eventually be kicked out of Parliament, but could take some time. One of her so-called victims who had to fight to get paid, he will join us. And are you horny? Do you want a happy ending to wrap up the show? Sharyn Casey reckons she has just what you need, so stand by for that. I'm Duncan, Garner. The open line is 0800 863 293. My question, should slow drivers be fined? There's a question for you. Text me 3598. That comes to me direct. You can jump on all the YouTube, TikTok, everything here. Leave a comment on the link there. Call 0800 863 293. It's news time. Here's MediaWorks Deputy News Editor. It is Grace Cocker.
Darleen Tana has neither confirmed nor denied whether she will resign from Parliament. The embattled MP has quit the Greens in the wake of a report into allegations of migrant exploitation at her husband's business. Political commentator Peter Dunn says it'll be tough to stay on independently.
She'll have a pretty lonely existence with no friends and few opportunities.
Academics are applauding Susie Wiles for having the courage to speak up against her employer. The University of Auckland has been ordered to pay the microbiologist $20,000 for failing to protect her from COVID backlash. Professor Sean Hendy says the abuse was vile.
Many New Zealanders will have heard of or seen some of the vitriol that she's been subjected to. It was really intense, and no one should have to go through that.
A 39-year-old woman will appear in court today over a violent attack against a Chinese teenager on an Auckland bus. She was arrested yesterday. Asian Family Services CEO Kelly Feng says it sent shockwaves through the community.
But this is a surprise to me that just attacking a vulnerable, teenager who was just going to school, which is really horrible.
Kiev's mayor has declared a day of mourning following a barrage of deadly strikes on the capital. Dozens of Russian missiles rained down on cities across Ukraine, killing at least 36 people. And a woman in New Plymouth has started a petition to ban G-string togs at public pools. Amy Dixon has taken up the mantle on change.org. She says her family has often been left feeling uncomfortable. To sport, the NRL admits they should have awarded a potential match-winning penalty to the Warriors in Saturday's Golden Point loss to the Bulldogs. A late tackle went unpunished by the bunker. Referees boss Graham Annesley.
So we think this is a miss by the match officials and it's unacceptable.
The Pulse are back on top of netball's ANZ Premiership with a 53-48 win over the Magic in Hamilton. And in tennis, Kiwi doubles specialist Michael Venus is through to the quarterfinals at Wimbledon. That's news and sport.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah, well, give the Warriors a point then. Just give it to them. Give them, give them the win. Anyway, who's this person that wants to get rid of G-strings? Come on.
She's a local woman in New Plymouth, apparently. She noticed when she was at her son's swimming lesson at the public pools some pretty revealing
as they are.
bikini bottoms, but they're not bikini bottoms. They're obviously G-strings. So
the G.
My argument is if you're going to ban that, ban the budgie.
Well, they should have been banned years ago. The budgie. But guys with taste don't wear them, you see.
Oh, is that the... Okay.
Guys with taste don't wear them.
I mean, I don't know. I just think...
Do you like the budgie?
Don't need to restrict everything.
Oh, cancel everything. Come on. No. Keep it there.
It's just a butt.
No. What?
I mean, in saying that, I don't have kids, so that's possibly why I'm very laid back about it.
I got you. I know the kids will look at it anyway, won't they?
Garner.
I mean, they'll decide what's right or wrong. Some councils around the country are slamming the brakes on the government's proposal to raise speed limits, saying they overwhelmingly don't agree. Auckland Council has voted strongly against the government's push to go faster. In 2020, much of the CBD became the 30k zone, frustrating drivers. So National went to the election saying, they'll overturn this. Yep, we'll change it back. But the council said, hang on, not so fast. It remarkably found something that they agreed on, and they joined in a group hug to oppose the government's plan to raise the speed limits back to where they were. Greg Murphy, former race car champion, says those wanting to keep the lower speed limits have no idea what they're wiring on about, basically, and they're not experienced and don't know enough. And he joins us now. Murph, g'day. Nice to have you on the program.
Hey, Duncan. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. What's the guts of this then? Government says it's going to do something, people vote for it, and then the council says no.
Yeah, listen, I think there's a little bit more to it, as there usually is. I think definitely there's some changes that were made that were not well thought out by the previous government, and now there needs to be some sort of rectifying of those decisions, because there was stuff done, blanket changes that were not fit for purpose 24/7. I agree that around schools and things there needs to be some change, and there has been a lot of change, but those speed limits implemented do not work 24/7. Variable speed limits in a lot of cases needed to be put in place. But being it was fast-tracked, it wasn't thought out well enough, and therefore it's created other issues. So, listen, there's always need for update and change, and it's not just the slow stuff. There's the high-speed stuff as well, and where areas of, like around where I live in Hawke's Bay, have slowly been changing from rural to semi-rural to now built up residential. We've been a bit slow to get on the act on that, But this little war of words around council versus government, and again, I think it's a lot of it's people that are just wanting to make noise rather than actually look at the issue properly and actually fix it accordingly. And again, I don't think experts are necessarily being used in these areas.
No, I think you're right. I think councillors aren't experts in everything. In fact, they're probably experts in not much at all. And when you have 18-3 vote against the government push, who's in power here? Did the government have a mandate, or is it the council that has the mandate? Who's the boss?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think this is a problem with a lot of things, isn't it, these days around all this kind of stuff? Who's actually in charge, and why are we even talking about it in some cases? This is an issue that has been raised because of a lack of attention for a very, very long time. And as I say, a lot of stuff has been not fit for purpose for a long time, and now there's been some change, and the knee-jerk stuff wasn't, as I say, has caused the problem in the first place. There needed to be better interaction, consultation around these, and better thought out processes that don't go then and cause issues with with the public. Just making a change for the sake of making change is a big issue, and something that is happening far too much around the place because someone has been given a job to do it. So let's just make a change for the sake of it.
Yes, they give it a white coat and a clipboard, and they're told to do something, so they go and do it to the entire city, and it doesn't work. Blanket rules don't work. I mean, blanket rules are put in place because we're damn lazy and we're cutting corners in terms of doing our work on it. There are certain places they're sure required to go slow, but not everywhere.
Definitely cutting corners. I mean, and it's more than just around the cities and bits and pieces as well. I mean, there's a huge amount of examples of where there was knee-jerk reactions by the previous government, and it angered a lot of people by these changes. And also, there was supposed to be a consultation submission process. And it was actually a bit of cloak and daggers kind of stuff, where the submissions were put in by residents and communities around changes to speeds, and yet NZTA had already made the decisions and they were already well underway. The consultation ended up just an absolute waste of everyone's time, and the speed changes were made regardless, and it upset a huge amount of people, and we were sort of affected by that down here in Hawke's Bay with State Highway 5.
Yeah, and, that's ridiculous. 80, it's 80, isn't it, right the way through?
Well, there's a lot of irony because the section from the turnoff at Bayview that goes through Eskdale was kept at 100, and that was part. And this is my point about how we haven't got experts making decisions. That section should have been 80 because it's quite built up now. There's a lot of businesses and community schools and also residents living on that bit of road, and that bit was kept 100, while other bits that were clearly 100 were brought down to 80, and that was a knee-jerk based on previous statistics that had actually been changed through some really good police management.
What about schools, outside schools? So there's this push to have, I think it's 30 now around schools, but to have it all the time, all day, all night. So it's a 24/7 blanket rule. When some argue that, well, you need it between the drop-off hours and the pick-up hours, but then Carolyn Perry from Break goes out there and says, well, no, most of the accidents happen outside of pick-up and drop-off time.
Well, then that's the case for every bit of road everywhere then, because what's that got to do with the school? Let me go back. The issue starts with the failure that we have had for decades and decades in not preparing drivers accordingly, right from the beginning, Duncan. And people will crash in every conceivable situation. I mean, the Hawke's Bay Expressway, which is now not an expressway because of the wire barriers that have been installed in it, it's now pretty much a car park most of the time. There is never not damage to that wire barrier. At the moment, there is 5 sections in one, I think it's like 3-kilometre section of wire barrier, perfectly good bit of road. The damage to the wire barrier, and some of it has been there for 4, 5, 6 weeks, the damage, not fixed. It just gets left. There's massive issues here. So this bit of road is perfectly good, yet there's this amount of damage to it, right? Now, why is this happening? Why are people crashing into a wire barrier constantly in a perfectly good bit of road? There's a lot of reasons for it. Now, why are people crashing into each other at 20 kilometres an hour on the motorway? Because they're not paying attention
they're distracted.
to what's going on in front of them.
They're distracted. Yeah.
But the distraction in this country now is a runaway train. We will never fix it. It's not possible to fix because the culture now and the way people treat the system is with disdain. I mean, we've got so many issues on our roads. For me, yes, there's lots and lots of things we should be doing. We're not doing very many, and we're targeting the low-hanging fruit, the absolute dead set low-hanging fruit, which is let's lower the speeds and that'll fix it. It doesn't fix it.
No, I reckon
it does not.
I reckon it's madness. This whole the road to zero, that was crap, and then this whole thing on speed. Yes, if you're going fast and if you crash, you're more likely to injure yourself. But the numbers of people having accidents and dying as a result of distracted drivers is up near 50% now. That's where the issue is. It's people with dogs on their laps, phones in their hand, texting and on the phone, and also changing the radio. It's bloody ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep, and it's, as I say, it's a runaway train. But if you're not preparing people accordingly, and we don't have proper deterrents in place, and or penalties to try and actually stem the flow, then we've all got to accept that it's only going to get a lot worse. Now, we've got friends, and my kids have gone recently through getting licenses. And I was talking to a friend the other day about her son who failed his learner's license twice, right? And we started talking about that. And the reason why he failed it twice was he got to questions both times through when he failed that he couldn't align the correct answer to the question. Now, he couldn't align the correct answer to the question was because he didn't know what the answer was. He just read it and memorized it through doing all the practice tests, and then aligned the answer with the question.
Yes.
Right? But he didn't know why. He didn't know why that answer was the right answer. It's just that he memorized it. So we're not learning. So the kids don't learn why the answers to the questions are the answers. Right? That doesn't happen. They are memorizing what those answers are. So there's no learning there. And then when they go and do their restricted driver's test, right, the driver trainer, or that's taking them for the lessons, takes them around the restricted driving course that they're going to be tested on. So they memorize what they need to do. They don't learn. Yeah. They memorize.
I think that's
And then they go and spend $280 or $260 doing the defensive driving course to get 6 months off their restricted license, which is the most critical phase of the graduated licensing system. Get 6 months off, but it's not a pass or a fail. You go and sit in a classroom.
Yeah.
Right? It's a discount.
Yeah.
And so what are you learning? You're not learning absolutely anything.
Yeah, no, I've heard you on this a number of times, and I'm with you. I'm totally with you. 100% support you on this. Just very, very quickly before we go, should slow drivers be fined more?
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's never going to happen. Yes, there's a lot of that going on around the place. Police don't have enough resources. It is, mate. I mean, it's going to be a continued problem. There should be more sort of awareness about it, and there should be, I don't know about fine, but definitely pulled over and talked to. But again, police are already under resourced. I'm not sure how we're going to manage that one.
Some ignorant drivers around. Hey, good on you, Murph. Always appreciate your time and support what you're doing, mate. Cheers. Okay.
Garner.
Okay, 0800 863 293. I think they should be pulled over, slow drivers, and read the riot act, because they're the ones causing so much frustration out there, big time. 0800 863 293 is the number. 117 days since she was stood down. The investigation into Darleen Tana has finally concluded after claims that she was linked to migrant exploitation at her husband's bike shop. These are allegations at this stage. Tana has been asked to resign, but she's fighting on, clearly hoping to stay on her $168,000 salary. Why give up the job when you're on 168K? So she's hanging in there because this is payday, right? So you want to extend it as much as you can. One of those caught up in this mess is Chuck Simpson, who fought for years to be paid after working for the couple. We've spoken to Chuck before, and he joins us now. Chuck, nice to have you back on the program, mate. What's your take on the report?
Oh, it's I read over. They sent us a copy first thing yesterday morning for us to read over, and I mean, every person that they interviewed, Rachel said, we were all honest and true and had evidence to back everything up. And Darleen and her husband basically just kept changing their stories, and pretty much everything they were saying was a lie.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I haven't seen the report. No one's seen the report except for those who are involved in it, because Darleen Tana hasn't given her permission for the report to be released. Tell me more about the report. It's really damning, isn't it?
It is, and the first time I was interviewed by Rachel, I wasn't sure because she was being paid by the Greens. I thought, this might be a little bit biased in Darleen's favor. But, after you read through it, I mean, Rachel Burt did an amazing job, super, super thorough. I mean, I know it took a long time, but she really went through every person. She added people at the end that probably had a lot to add. I think, my case and the other case that have already been to the ERA, we had evidence, but the last two that she added, they had a lot more evidence, and they had a lot of interaction with Darleen, like some interaction that I think when it comes public, people are going to be like, wow,
Right.
that's
What you mean?
crazy.
You mean more than just a bystander and all this, but heavily. I mean, she was involved in your case too. I mean, she's very. I mean, my view is, after what I've heard from different people on this, that it's not just allegations. This woman's heavily involved in her husband's business.
Oh yes, I mean she was. I mean, it's funny. I think she said she was the backup to the backup to the backup.
Yeah, that's right.
But yet, you receive a salary, and she's for 30 minutes to 4 hours a week. Yes, and I had text messages and emails, but the last two people that had worked more recently, I mean, I think there was over 500 WhatsApp messages with her involved in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's damning right there. There's your evidence right there. There are that many messages. I mean, that's astonishing. I hadn't heard that. So there's your evidence that she's not just a bystander, she's heavily involved. What should happen now? The Greens want her to resign. She's clearly digging her heels in. She's not going anywhere. They could kick this waka jumping law into place, but the Greens have always opposed this, you see. The Greens have always opposed this. What do you want to happen?
Yeah, I mean, Well, I mean, I know they have opposed that, but I think Chloe should have come out yesterday and and I don't think she realizes who she's dealing with here. I mean, all of us, the victims, we know what Darleen and her husband are like because we've all dealt with them for 5.5 years. Now Chloe and the Green Party are going to get to experience what we experienced. These people are tough, and she will not give up. And Chloe should have come out and said, you have till 5 o'clock today, resign. If you don't, we're using the waka jump law.
Well, I wonder if they should put the report.
Said,
I think they should put the report into the hands of the police and the immigration authority, shouldn't they?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can't believe that Darlene's basically saying there's nothing in there that links her to migrant exploitation, and I'm like, so when is the criminal investigation going to start? That should have started yesterday. Like Chloe should have said, now we are launching a criminal investigation for migrant exploitation, tax evasion. They've paid a lot of people in cash. Like, so where's the taxes and things like that? Like, I think they have to come down a lot harder. I don't think they realize what they're dealing with here. And now they're going to be victims. The Green Party will be victims of Darleen and her husband.
Yeah. Well said, Chuck. Appreciate your time as always on the program, and all the very best with your continued fight. I know you've had some money paid, so appreciate your time, mate.
Garner.
Okay, so this is a right royal mess. I'll tell you more about how I compare this with the Taito Phillip Field case from years ago. But given the months-long investigation, the cost of $43,000, we've got to ask, why did it take so long? The Greens have asked her to resign from Parliament as well, but will she? No, I think we can make that pretty clear. Can they make her resign with this waka jumping law? Lawyer, political commentator and co-host of the political podcast 3 Gals, 1 Beehive, Brigitte Morten joins me now. G'day Brigitte, nice to have you on the show.
Good morning, great to be here.
Yeah, so the Greens, for a start, let's give them some credit. They've taken a report and they've said, wow, we didn't realise it was so bad. So at least they've gone and kicked her out, right? They've gone and basically said, not good enough. Sometimes political parties do whitewashes and greenwashes or whatever, so good on them for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think they acted really quickly from when they got the report. But I mean, the issue has been, why has the report taken so long? It doesn't seem like it was that complicated that it had to take since March to get it done.
No, I suppose when you're getting paid per day or per hour, whatever, you extend it out to $43,000 worth. Now, so there's the first cost. The second cost is having her continue to stay on. The waka jumping law, the Greens have always opposed it. So how do you implement it if you oppose it?
Yeah, well, that's their problem, right? I mean, they haven't always opposed it. Remember, they did vote for it. The reason it's on the books is because their votes went towards it. But I do think for them, the reason that they oppose it is because they go back to their party membership. Darleen Tana was elected onto their list by their party membership. I think there's ways of working around this. They just need to put into their, constitution, their rules that basically a parliamentary leader can't enforce this or use it unless the Green Party membership agrees to it. That's a simple way of keeping the grassroots action happening there, while also making sure we get accountability for taxpayers.
Yeah. Listening to Chloe Swarbrick in the last 24 hours, I think that they will use the waka jumping law, but what they'll do is they'll put it to their AGM. I think their AGM's coming up in Christchurch in a few weeks. So they will come back from there and say, our membership have demanded that the next person comes in on the list. that she's no longer one of us, so we're going to implement the waka jumping law. It's not our call, it's our membership call. So there we go. I think that's the way around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with them doing it that way because I think that does respect their party membership. I think the problem is that a couple of weeks away means a couple more weeks of her being on the taxpayer's bill and, us paying for her to be there, and also gives her options. Is she going to go to Te Pāti Māori?
This is the problem with list MPs, isn't it? And it's always been the problem with list MPs. Once they go rogue, because let's be honest, she's gone rogue, big time, then they float around the parliament. They have no home, they have no friends, they have no mandate, but they do have the full paycheck. And this is going to continue and continue, I think, for weeks and weeks and weeks before it's sorted out.
Yeah, well, we're just going to go back to last year, Elizabeth Kitty, same situation. They didn't want her in the party anymore. She didn't want to be in the party anymore because she had completely lost faith in the leadership. But still, we paid for her to be there whilst delivering no outcomes. The
Greens, I reckon, have had a nightmare year. The Greens, if you're asking who's fit for government, you look at the Green Party. Hello? They've had a terrible year.
I mean, it's one way of doing a refresh, right? That they've got a bunch of new MPs that they never expected to have.
Yes, for sure. Hey, good on you, Brigitte. Appreciate your time on the program.
Thanks, Duncan.
Okay, take care.
Garner.
Okay, 0800 863 293. Duncan, crash stats. This is around the Murph interview. Good morning, Duncan. We had a crash. Every 2 weeks on our farm, State Highway 1, State Highway 29. Then 60k change from 100k. So I went from 100k to 60k, and the crashes stopped overnight. So there we go, the slowdown there worked. But that would be a particular part of the road, you see. So, of course, it says 100, but you really only can do 60. We'll go 60, Duncan, crash stats haven't dropped on the Woku to Drury Road since speed reduction at all, says Peter. And Timmy says, Duncan, fines only work if you can't afford to pay them. Fines hammer the poor. Yeah, they really do.
Garner.
Okay, 0800 863 293.
3 questions from the Editor-in-Chief. 1.
At number 1 today, here we go. What's worse than inflation? Apparently nothing, but shrinkflation looks pretty bad as well, and it's a growing trend, this shrinkflation. Shrinkflation is the made-up term given for products that are much smaller than they appear if you just look at the packaging. Packaging is big and the products are getting smaller, and it may be getting worse. Social media groups online say Tim Tams, Chocolate Thins and Crispies are now thinner and smaller with fewer biscuits in the packet. We think this requires further investigation, and we'll start with Toffee Pops after the show.
2.
At number 2, could Wellington's Miramar Peninsula now be stoat-free? It's actually possible. It's thought just one male stoat remained in the area, but he avoided capture. So hard to get, you see, but no one could catch this thing. Traps, nothing. But finally, he's been nailed. His reign of terror on the peninsula has been cut short, and it's thought that will put stoat life to an end in that corner of the world. Sadly, the rats remain.
3.
And at number 3 today, what animal has the lowest sex drive? And we all know this. It's the female panda, who's only interested in having sex one day a year. That's a lot of not tonight, mate. Not tonight, please. Maybe up to 3 days a year at best if you play your cards right. Now, the animal with the highest sex drive off the planet is the penguin. They simply can't get enough of it. They don't care which penguin they're doing it with as long as it's a penguin. Same-sex couples also no problem as well in their kingdom. That's what I'm told.
Garner.
Yeah, Sharyn Casey. Now, Sharyn Casey, and staying with this theme with Sharyn, what do we make of all these promises of pills that will increase your sex drive or save your sex life, and how much of these wellness industry sort of perks are just junk science, not to be believed? Is it all show and no go, or is it legitimate and next minute you're a penguin out of control? Most of the time, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Now, fellow MediaWorks broadcaster Sharyn Casey has released a new podcast called Better Me, hopefully, and she joins me now. Sharyn, tell me about your podcast.
So if I level with you, I am a person with podcasts that hates podcasts. Like, a podcast has to be really good for me to listen to it.
Yeah, I agree.
And
it has to be top notch, eh?
Yeah, like
yeah.
it
don't waste my time
lot.
otherwise.
Yeah, because I'm kind of like you'll lose me in 5 seconds. So they've been trying to get me to do a podcast for a while, and I just was like, nah, I don't like that idea. Like, whatever.
Concepts, everything, eh?
Yeah, and the closest I came to a podcast was like, I'd love to do a podcast about country music. and
they said no thanks.
They were like, no, and I was like, well, you look, country's about to be real big, and 12 months later,
country is big.
Look at it, it's the biggest genre in the world right now.
Yeah.
But when this opportunity came up, I was like, well, I don't want to do a wellness podcast because I feel like
everyone's done.
Every person with a pair of Lululemon tights and loves wearing beige has got a wellness podcast. And so I was like, well, I'd rather do a wellness podcast for people that hate wellness, which is me.
Yeah, so debunk the myths.
Yeah, because
whatever.
Honestly, you probably haven't experienced it as a man, but like as a woman, my algorithm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook is every third thing is someone telling me to do wall Pilates, take this
I see all that
fat
stuff.
burner, take this, get this AI personal trainer, and it's just.
My algorithm is the next boat I want to buy. You know, like, is that outboard the right one? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was just non-stop. It's like to the point that because that whole like repetition builds reputation. So
Yeah.
the more someone tells you something, the more you start to believe it. And that's what I was finding with all of these ads on Instagram.
You've got to get it out of there. You've got to get out of there. Save yourself.
Honestly, name something that
It's bad. It's wrong.
I haven't tried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, honestly, I almost crapped my pants on the Auckland Harbour Bridge. It was bad from like a fit tee. Then I took a.
Well, they're selling adult nappies now everywhere. So.
Well, honestly,
Everywhere.
it wasn't worth the pain or the exorcism, obviously.
Okay, so you start off with booze.
Yes, yeah. So I made the decision this last year, and then officially January 1, like everyone, that
No, not the January one.
yeah, that booze just no longer served me, and so I just
Did you get
didn't.
hammered the day before?
Absolutely. And that was why I woke up and I had the worst hangover anxiety, worst mind blanks, and I'm not an alcoholic.
It's not worth it, eh?
Yeah, like I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm just somebody that once I get going, I'm like, let's do shots, let's do that, and I don't have the handbrake.
Yeah, so that's why I gave up, sort of.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not officially a non-drinker.
Yeah.
But I'm like that.
Yeah, I'll drink if I go on. Like I went on holiday for a week.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Okay,
I think the first time I met you was on the booze.
Oh, was that up in Ponsonby?
Yes, it was,
At a silver party.
At the long room.
Yeah,
that's
long room,
right.
yeah, I got hammered.
I know, we all did.
It was a
And
big afternoon, that one.
I know, I also...
That was massive.
This is so bad.
I was much younger.
That day, I had done a pregnancy test that morning and it was negative. And 2 days later, I had a positive pregnancy test. So... Thankfully, my son's watching this right now.
Yeah, he's okay.
Watching this right now.
He's normal.
He's reading a book.
He's looking at me over the no, he's normal.
He's reading a book and he's fine.
Yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, that
Well,
was
he's reading a book.
night.
I mean, it's almost abnormal these days.
Well, I know that's very true.
Okay, so you talk about flicking booze.
Yes. So I interviewed Andy Towers, who's a professor at Massey University in mental health and addiction, and he was really interesting, and I loved talking to him because even though he's telling you all the facts of why booze is bad and stuff like that, he still is a casual drinker, so it's not too preachy. And then I also spoke to Vic and Hamish from the podcast Sober Awkward, which is like the biggest wellbeing podcast in Aussie, and they were so interesting. And I liked the episode because it's very like the parts from me feel quite raw, a little deeper than I wanted to go on the first episode.
What do you conclude on booze? What do you say?
Look, if you can do it, go hard. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but for me personally, it's not something I'm ever going to pick up regularly in my life again.
But it's because you get to a certain age, you've got a child, you've got other responsibilities. You past it?
I think
You're
so,
over it?
but also
You're tired of it?
Also it freaks me out. Like one of the stats that Andy Towers was telling me that women are like 60% more likely to get breast cancer if they're a regular drinker.
I heard that.
And also, like anyone that is a regular drinker, you massively heighten your risks of cancer because alcohol is a carcinogenic.
What worries me is that we've done the damage in the first 20 years, though.
Yeah, because and that was the interesting chat, is that he was like, New Zealand screwed up because we didn't make weed legal, right? And weed is not a carcinogenic. Alcohol, which is barely regulated, is.
Yeah, what's the worst drug? It's alcohol.
100 more people are dying
More
from
damage.
alcohol. Yeah,
Ever seen anyone go into A&E with an ecstasy problem?
exactly.
Okay, so and episode 2?
Episode 2, we're talking about Ozempic, which
Yeah.
has become like, well, I think that beauty standards are already kind of effed, and then now we've got Ozempic, which is a miracle drug, and it's amazing for people that have got like obesity, diabetes, polycystic ovaries, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a miracle drug for people that actually need it. But now celebrities are kind of glorifying Ozempic, and people that don't need Ozempic, whose BMI isn't even near needing Ozempic, are taking it to have a fast as shred. And we're seeing the return of like that
Does
early
it work,
90s.
does it?
Yeah, but with massive side effects.
So what are the side effects? So you call it out. You say, yes, it works, but...
Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that these drugs were so common in New Zealand, like with
I've
different...
never heard of it.
Yeah, well, Ozempic's not here yet.
I need to get onto the celebrity pages.
Yeah, well, you'd know it if you looked, but it's like it hasn't made it to New Zealand yet as Ozempic, but it is here as like Saxenda and a bunch of other things. And so in this episode, we spoke to Johan Hari, who has written Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and he has written a book called The Magic Pill. He takes Ozempic. He's been taking it for over a year, and he's spoken to every expert about it. But I thought that was a really valuable conversation, but even more valuable that kind of hit it home for me was I spoke to my friend Katie, who I didn't know had taken the New Zealand equivalent.
She took it.
And then a bunch of people that listen to my show On The Edge, I put it on Instagram, they replied, and a bunch of those women have shared their story on the podcast as well. And already this morning, the podcast's only been out for a few hours, I've had messages from people saying they didn't even realise that it was here.
Do you know, and this is why it's great, what you're doing is a great podcast, because it reaches people. So I'm not saying radio doesn't, because of course it does, but a podcast listener is 4 to 5 times the value of a radio listener because they are so entrenched and they're so committed to your subject.
Yes, and that's
they
the
want to
thing,
get hold of you, like you're a hero to them, right? So they will, you'll notice your inbox all through the day. Just
yeah.
Yeah?
Well, okay.
That's fantastic, isn't it? People are out there.
Yeah, it's great. I love building that little community. Like, when we had that with trainee sexologists, where we just had this awesome community which we would just like talk all the time, and we're already seeing that with Better Me, hopefully. So I'm really pumped on that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an interesting ride, because some of the topics that we're going to be covering are definitely going to be ones that people.
Give us a quick preview.
Okay, so what have we got? We've got an episode on vaping coming up, because
get rid of it.
Yep.
Put it into pharmacies.
Exactly. It's already in pharmacies.
Leave it there only then.
Oh, but vaping, we're going to be talking late in life lesbianism. Is smut the new porn? We're going to be talking about libidos. It's not all sex stuff.
It sounds like it might be.
Mental health medication, because a lot of people, like I myself, take medication for my mental health, and it's the amount
of... What does it do, balance you?
Yeah, because I've got like really bad anxiety, depression, so I take that just to like...
And does it lift you?
100% changed my life.
Yep.
So talking about like that process.
Get it out there. Tell people.
Yeah.
We don't know this stuff. It's hidden behind the doors of the surgeries and of the GPs and of the psychiatrists and everything, you know?
Oh, agree.
Talk to us about it, yeah?
I love that like our workplace has started to talk about it to the point that like I can text somebody at work or literally just go out in the office and be like, has anyone got any sertraline? And somebody will have some.
What's that?
Sertraline's like an anti-anxiety medication. And it'll be like, has anyone got any sertraline? And because if you've run out of something.
Is that how people talk now?
Yeah, well, it's just that so many. I think we've opened up the conversation so much about mental health that definitely around like our part of the building, we all just kind of like ask each other.
But it's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
See, so for me, coming through in this job, we never did.
Yeah.
You know, for the last 30 years, we never did. It was just, what's wrong with you?
There's still a massive stigma around it.
No, but men are starting to talk now.
Yeah.
Men can talk.
100%.
And so I encourage all my mates to. I do. I've been to counselling. I've talked to people.
Yeah.
Needed to.
Oh.
Sure, this is not the finished product.
I think that everybody, like, if everybody has, like, a dentist, a doctor, and a therapist should be, like, how it rolls.
How can you afford the dentist as well?
Pardon?
How do you afford the dentist as well as all the other stuff? The dentist.
Just go like once a year or something. You only go once a year, but you know what I mean? It's like it should be as important as having a GP if you can actually get an appointment and a dentist.
Just because it's not bleeding doesn't mean it's not bleeding.
100%.
You know, I think it's a great podcast. It's going to go gangbusters. It already is, I know, so well done.
Well, fingers crossed. Here's hoping. There is more than sex on it, but if you are horny, it's a great podcast.
I knew you'd go there. Good on you, mate. Yeah, did we hear that correctly? We did, didn't we? Okay. So, 0800 863 293 is my number. Troy says to me that he's a penguin. Penguins are the horniest thing. Okay, Troy, we get that. Wellness, Kayla, are you a wellness man? Do you use wellness products?
I thought you were going to ask me if I'm a penguin or not.
Well, no, I was going to ask you about later in life lesbianism, but I don't think that's you.
No. Wellness products. Well, I suppose if you could call a counsellor a product. I do. Well, I'm on the same medication as Sharyn.
Hey.
On sertraline. So I've been on some form of antidepressant, sort of anti-anxiety medication since 2017.
Wow.
So when I was
does it work for you?
19.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Really?
Like literally, I'm the same as Sharyn. It's changed my life. It
wow.
really has.
Do you know what? When you open this up for a discussion, you realise how many people are using all sorts of different medications to find a balance, you know?
And the thing is, you know, people go, oh, you know, you shouldn't do medication. Some people do. But the thing is, it's actually not bad to be on medication. There's no shame in it at all.
Well, we have given it that shame in the past.
That's
but we don't need to. We talk about it. Yeah.
Totally. Just talk about it. And like, you know, my family, there's mental health issues on both sides. And the best thing that I had when I was being brought up was complete and utter openness about it from my parents.
That's fantastic. That's the best way to be. The worst bit is under the carpet.
Oh, totally.
Sleep's quite a good form of therapy too.
Yes.
sleep.
If I have a shit night's sleep,
You're grumpy.
I know straight away.
I've seen it.
And, have you? Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
Working with me, does that raise your anxiety levels or lower them?
No. It
No what?
has... You're quite a stable person now.
Now?
Well, I don't. I mean that in terms of like, now's a bad choice of words, but you seem like quite a stable operator in terms of how you prepare the show and things like that. I've worked with some pretty erratic operators, not naming names.
Consistent.
Yeah, consistent. You do your job, you turn up at the same time every day.
Which is late.
And so I'm a big routine person.
Right, so there we go. I'll meet your routine. Yeah. Yes, you're a rugby referee as well. We wouldn't always see eye to eye.
By the book.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
Garner.
Okay, 0800 863 293 is the number.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Yeah. Now, Darleen Tana, the former Green MP, should do the right thing and resign from Parliament immediately. But you know she won't, because, like this Burt report suggests, she's ducked and weaved and failed to tell the truth right the way through this thing. That's what it says. The sorry saga. It's a sorry saga. It's become clear that she had a hands-on role with her husband's bike business in which they're accused of hiring and exploiting immigrant workers by refusing to pay them their wages, effectively, what they're owed. Now, what we've also heard this morning is that Darleen Tana has said in the past, I'm not involved in the business. We've heard this morning from Chuck Simpson, one of those exploited workers, that she was involved so much so there were 500 WhatsApp messages between her and some of these workers. So we've now got this evidence. That's only just been released. The report's not released, but we've had information from the report released to us by Chuck. Now, we've heard all this on the podcast before, this point-blank refusal to pay workers what they're owed. And claimants like Chuck Simpson, who I just mentioned, had to go all the way to the ERA to get what he was owed. It took 5 years. It's a major embarrassment for the Greens, and it comes hot on the heels of their other, now former MP, Garner, who was convicted of theft. But also, some credit needs to go to the Greens also, I think, the way that they've handled this. It has surprised me. I thought this would be a bit of a whitewash, or it would have been inconclusive. But no, it's the other way around. They are holding her to account. But the evidence has clearly been overwhelming and undeniable, and the Greens have had to front-foot it and throw Tana to the wolves. That is never easy, and Chloe Swarbrick, in my view, has done the right thing here. In her, it's one of her first big tests as the sole co-leader of the party, isn't it? But Tana has other ideas and has given the Greens and the New Zealand taxpayer the one-fingered salute, the middle finger, up yours, she has said to all of us. And she's clearly going nowhere and intends to hang around Parliament. She may even join up with the Māori Party, who knows? But she intends to make the most of her $168,000 salary, despite not being there now for 117 days. Full pay, 170 days. Try that with your employer, see what happens. Make no mistake, she's milking it, and she's stretching her payday for as long as she can get away with it. Let's be clear, she has no business continuing in Parliament. She's a joke. She's a renegade, she's isolated, she's wounded, and this is now officially a rort. It's a rort. She's an MP who's gone rogue and is merely trying to stay on the public payroll for as long as she can. The Greens, along with Speaker Jerry Browning, can kickstart the waka jumping law in an attempt to kick her out of Parliament. It requires a few things to happen in the parliamentary process, hence why the Greens have asked her politely to please resign, to which she has turned around and said, nah, F you. This will now play out in a messy, unseemly way for weeks and weeks and weeks as Parliament uses its powers to send Tana out into the wilderness finally, and eventually she will probably get kicked out of Parliament, you'd think. And finally, this messy, expensive waste of space will no longer be supported by the New Zealand taxpayer. But as it stands, she's fighting to keep the paycheck rolling in, 117 days, and she wants another one. And she's been stood down already, and all that time she's been on full pay, which for that period alone is $40,000. 40 grand of the 168k salary she's been at home. And she even received a backdated pay rise like every other MP. Who knows what sort of travel costs she's racked up as well. Tana should resign, and the Greens should place their report and concerns with the New Zealand Police and immigration authorities to see if formal charges arise as a result. Years ago, now do you remember this? Years ago, Labour inquired into the now deceased MP, Taito Philip Field, for claims that he exploited immigrant workers. You remember this? Now, while the report raised lots of questions, it was only once it got into the hands of the police did anything happen. And Field was then sent to prison for 6 years. Tana may be clinging on to her parliamentary job for the sake of a payday, but she may yet face much more serious consequences if the police step in and decide there is enough evidence to send this to court.
Garner.
Right, 0800 863 293 is the number. Anthony just said, can't they just suspend her pay, or does she still have to get paid? That's the thing about Parliament. She still has to get paid. They can't suspend the pay. For them to kick her out of Parliament, she'd have to be convicted of an offence that carries a sentence of 2 years or more. Duncan says, James, I have panic attacks that wake me up and can be violent, nearly falling out of bed. I don't remember them though. Wow, that's major, James. I wonder if those the medication that Caleb's on might actually help you. Yeah, good feedback. And from TikTok, consistency is an interesting way of describing you, Duncan. I've heard worse. Consistency. Mr. Consistent. Yeah, I don't know if that would be the one. Anyway, that's us. Darleen Tana will be our plonker of the week. There's no doubt about that. So we'll put that on the plonker rankings. This will be available as a podcast on Rover shortly and wherever you get your great podcast. Don't forget Sharyn's one as well. Thanks for your feedback and support. I'm Duncan at rover.nz. To my team, Kalo, Miranda, Forrester and Zarina. Thank you, guys. We'll do it all again tomorrow, of course. And remember, your life isn't a dress rehearsal. There is no curtain raiser. This is it. This is the one we live in right now. It's also one of the best places on earth where we live. So enjoy it. Get out and have a great day, New Zealand. Take care.
That was Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief Live. Missed something on the live stream? Text Duncan to 3598 to listen back on the podcast. Want to get in touch? Call 0800 863 293.